Hi, welcome back. This is presentation 2 of chapter 12, the federal bureaucracy. We closed up the last discussion just talking a little bit about the different kinds of bureaucratic agencies out there. Obviously, the cabinet departments are the largest. Government corporations actually do things that private businesses could do if there was a business model that supported it. These are things that nevertheless the government wants done. So we're going to move on and continue talking about the federal bureaucracy in the second presentation. So America side by side, again, if you look at different countries, and the first set of graphs, the first set of numbers in the graph are basically the total government employment as a percentage of the labor market. If you look at Norway, it's 30%. That's by far the largest, and a big part of that is because its oil and gas industry are nationalized. The United States is at about 16%. And again, a big part of that is, again, because we are a federal republic, there's a lot of redundancy built into American government. That second graph is government employment by level of government, and that is, again, subnational versus national, the blue being national. If you look at Turkey, any notion that it's actually, a republic is belied by the fact that 91% of its employees, of government employees, are federal, national workers. The United States, again, only about a fifth of all government employees are federal employees. So more, close to 80% or 81% are actually state and local government employees. Defense is one of the largest bureaucracies in the world. The agencies of the federal bureaucracy handle a huge number of important functions, including national security. The Department of Defense, which is headquartered at the Pentagon, provides the civilian oversight over the military. The civilian leadership includes the Office of the Secretary of Defense, which manages the national security policy development, planning, resource management, budgetary planning, and program evaluation, along with the civilian Secretary of Defense and Deputy Secretary of Defense, who is second in charge and manages the day-to-day operations of the Office of the Secretary of Defense, which is, again, comprised of several different offices, including the General Counsel of the Department of Defense, Assistant to the Secretary of Defense for Intelligence Oversight, Assistants to the Secretary of Defense for Public Affairs, and the Chief Information Officer. There are a lot of undersecretaries as well in the Defense Department that handle matters, again, financial matters, acquisition, policy, training, etc. In addition, each branch of the military has a civilian secretary, the Secretary of the Army, Secretary of the Navy, and so forth, which again highlights the importance placed within our Constitution on maintaining civilian control and direction of the military. These are very important considerations. Let's see what else. The Joint Chiefs of Staff include the 5 military service chiefs, the 6 regional unified commands, and several additional agencies that supply and service the military. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs rotates among the different services. Another important thing to keep in mind is the Department of Defense controls 80 cents on the dollar that goes to the intelligence community. Many of the agencies in the intelligence community are nominally under the Department of Defense, including, for example, the Defense Intelligence Agency, which is the defense, kind of parallel to the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA. Defense Intelligence Agency exists basically to provide more military-oriented intelligence, whereas the CIA is more political intelligence. Homeland Security. Homeland Security is the 800-pound gorilla of domestic policy. It has responsibility for maintaining domestic security and was created in the aftermath of the 9/11/2001 Al-Qaeda terrorist attacks. DHS's anti-terrorist mandate requires integration of information from the intelligence community as well as from federal, state, and local law enforcement. So the potential reach of DHS is enormous. They can reach into local law enforcement in ways that some people find very concerning. DHS has a broad array of responsibilities related to Homeland Security. DHS is responsible for securing the nation's borders. They administer and enforce immigration laws. They address cybersecurity and energy security issues. They run the Secret Service. They administer disaster response and relief through the Federal Emergency Management Administration, and so forth. Some have argued that DHS's mandate is too broad and diverse, which has contributed to criticism and calls for reform. The Biden administration's creation of a DHS disinformation board, whose mandate was to combat the spread of misinformation, malinformation, and disinformation, ultimately was attacked by Republicans who believed that the board represented a huge government overreach, characterizing the board as Orwellian and un-American. And in the face of mounting criticism, the board was disbanded by DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas in August of 2022. Incidentally, Mayorkas has been impeached in the House of Representatives, and they are attempting to remove him. I believe that will fail at some point. There are a lot of bureaucratic agencies that are responsible for maintaining a strong economy. Again, the Treasury Department collects taxes through the Internal Revenue Service, which is one of its subsidiary agencies. It also manages the national debt. It's responsible for printing the currency and ensuring the authenticity of the currency. The Treasury also provides economic analysis, and they are the agency that imposes foreign asset sanctions. So, for example, when Russia invaded Ukraine, Treasury basically identified individual Russians who were supportive of Putin's regime and imposed sanctions on them. So they had grave difficulty moving money. A lot of their assets that were outside of Russia were frozen. Let's see, the Federal Reserve Board, also known as the Fed, has authority over the interest rates and lending activities, which it's the primary vehicle for monetary policy. It was created in 1913 as a joint public-private institution to act as a central banking institution responsible for adjusting the supply of currency in the economy. The Fed does this by raising and lowering the marginal interest rates that regional Federal Reserve banks extend to private equity and commercial banks. They raise interest rates when there's concern over inflationary pressures, and they lower interest rates when the economy falls into recession and economic activity begins to stall. So, in other words, the Fed is the primary vehicle through which monetary policy is executed. It is, in effect, our central banking institution. There are other agencies that also were created to strengthen other parts of the economy. For example, the Department of Agriculture, USDA, was created during the Civil War to promote more effective farming practices. Likewise, the Treasury Department promotes economic growth by overseeing the nation's, not the Treasury Department, but the Commerce Department. And the Commerce Department also has a small business administration that provides loans and technical administration to small businesses throughout the country. Promoting economic, or not economic, but promoting well-being, health and well-being. Public health agencies came to prominence during the COVID-19 pandemic. The key agency there was the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, which includes the National Institutes of Health and the Food and Drug Administration and the Centers for Disease Control, all of which played an important role in confronting the pandemic. The Department of Agriculture's Food and Nutrition Service administers the Federal School Lunch Program and Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, otherwise known as SNAP. The Interior Department's National Park Service maintains natural areas for the public to enjoy. And of course, the Labor Department's Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, makes rules that protect workers' health and safety. Organizational control over the bureaucracy is complicated. Congress decides whether to locate an agency within the executive branch or make them independent. Presidents have greater control over organizations contained within executive departments. Independent agencies like the Securities and Exchange Commission have more freedom from both the president and Congress. They're designed to be independent to keep partisan politics out of the operations of those agencies. So especially when you're talking about the IRS and the Securities and Exchange Commission, you don't want partisanship to play a role in how they're doing their job. Leadership structure: Congress can decide whether to place one person in charge of an agency or have a multi-person board. A board structure has the advantage of allowing bipartisan collaborative leadership. For example, only 3 of the Securities and Exchange Commission's 5 commissioners can be from one party. Boards may have staggered terms of office, which reduces the power of any one president to influence the an agency's leadership. So what do people think of federal agencies? And again, when you look at it, you can see that in some instances there's a lot of difference, a lot of partisan difference in how people, how partisans view. For example, if you look at the Postal Service, Democrats and Republicans are relatively on the same page as thinking they're pretty good. The Central Intelligence Agency, they're actually about the same. But when you look, for example, at the FBI, this has actually changed quite a bit. Even it used to be that the Republicans really liked the FBI. Now they really don't like it. So that's a real challenge for the FBI. And if you look at some of the, Department of Homeland Security, a lot of Democrats don't like it. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, if you look, the Veterans Affairs, both it's bipartisan that Republicans and Democrats are unhappy with how Veterans Affairs are being managed. So that's it for this presentation. When we come back, we will continue discussing the role the bureaucracy plays in federal government. I'll see you next time.